I've asked Supervisor Ron Campbell to lead us in the pledge, please.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Campbell. We'll now go to 1B, call to the public. Is there anyone that would like to address the board and call to the public? Sheriff? Good morning.
Tim Sumner, I'm sheriff here. Initially, I was just gonna ask momentarily if we could use the screen share just to show the county's website, but Mr. Pierce said it wasn't available today, and I couldn't get it in public. But anyways, what I wanted to address was months ago, I spoke with the board about the IT and trying to get together to help get the websites available already. Several months ago, we did meet with that back last year. We did meet a few months ago after I brought that up. And then it was kind of not a deadline, but a goal to have the county go live on their website, right? Sorry, this is pushed way over there, to go live on the website. And so I had some reservations with the sheriff's office website, and we were still trying to get some corrections made. We're still trying to work with IT, and it went ahead and went live anyways. I got to looking at that, and I still don't have access. We don't have access to make those little simple changes. There's a lot of things. It just makes it look unprofessional for us and actually for their offices as I started to look at that. If you go to the sheriff's office website, like for instance, a simple email, it says the email to send an email to, and then a V is on the next line, and another one for the clerk, I saw the O and V for .gov, az.gov. The V, O, and V on the next line, just little things adjustments that needed to happen that I was wanting to do, and several things I want to do on my page. However, I couldn't get to it. One of the things that I was wanting to do was simply just go and find the agenda for today. And so yesterday in my office, I appreciate your clerk. She sends the packet out to those that request it. I did get the packet, and so I tried to reference back to the agenda. If you look at your own website or try to go to the website, just something if we could try to vet this. In the upper right corner, it says public media notices and meetings. When you click on that, it has your notice about your meetings, and it has a bunch of videos from your board meetings, and then it has today's meeting. When you click on that, all you get is this orange box that says when and where it is. There's no way to get to the agenda. There's no way to get to the agenda. I had to navigate. I called several times yesterday, several people, talking to people in my office, like, how do you get the agenda? We could not get to the agenda. I don't know if you tried to navigate that because you get it yourselves as the board, but if you try to go on your website and navigate to see how, because people were asking me how you get the agenda, it's very difficult. So in my office, I spent about an hour yesterday, and I said, is this really this difficult? And so I opened up Graham counties, Healy counties. As a matter of fact, I sent this to your clerk, and I can give you a copy of it. I got a few copies here, but I actually just went through all 15 counties real quick. It took me just under an hour to go through all 15 counties to look on, see how would I get to their agenda if I wanted to find it. And immediately I was able to create this real quick that showed all 15 counties. I know you're always big about what are the other counties doing, right? And so if you'll notice, if I can approach Mr. Chairman, I'll just
Please.
See that Greenland County is the only one on the far right corner or far right box where it says docs. Documents means that people have access to get to the supporting documents that you guys have that you're voting on, make your decisions based on. Yeah, I gave extra copies, probably you could pass them around. Sorry, I didn't know, I didn't count them. But the supporting documentation is one thing that I've always been asking about. For the last couple of years, I've been getting those packets from your clerk because I requested an ongoing one. I know some other elected officials have, some other people have requested that. It's kind of cumbersome, I think, on your clerk to have to email all these different people the packets all the time. But if you look, everyone else has that. So you can look at it later. I've emailed it. Those are all hyperlinks. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the board?
Can we follow up
On that?
We will. I
would
would also
make sure
encourage,
that it's successful. I seem like I can go to our website and click on the agenda and it opens. So I don't know if there's some.
we will, and I would ask the sheriff also to file or to do the ticketing system to notify IT of the specific issues. But yes, we will follow up. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else in call to the public? Okay, no one else, and we'll go to agenda item 2. The Board of Supervisors will convene as the Board of Directors of Greeley County Public Health Service District, and out of order of business will reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. A, consent agenda.
I so move that we approve the consent agenda as posted.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. We are now convened as the Board of Supervisors, and we will convene as the Board of Directors of Greene County Flood Control District, and after order of business, we'll reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. A, consent agenda.
So move that we approve the consent agenda as posted.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We are now convened as the Board of Supervisors, and we'll go to agenda item 4. Mr. Repair, Tony Hines.
Thank you. I'll introduce it and certainly ask for Tony to help me and back me up. He did the research here. As you recall, a couple of months ago, we were confronted with a situation where one of our tanks in the Duncan area, a diesel fuel tank, had begun to leak, and we determined that the tank itself needed to be replaced. We reached out to Synergy, who is our fuel supplier, and they offered us what amounted to a 5-year, what we call a requirements contract. In other words, we will supply you with all of the fuel that you need. We have 3 different kinds of fuel. We have unleaded, diesel, and red dye diesel, correct? So in the intervening weeks, I've asked Tony to contact different other government agents and find out how they meet these needs. They're summarized on the page I've given you. There's copies of the page on the back table. In short, what we're finding is some of what we already suspected from the get-go. By the way, I also reached out to Marathon, which supplies the mine. I've not heard anything back from them as to whether or not they have any interest in supplying Greene County fuel. There are 2 elements in this purchasing decision. One is how do we get the best price available? And the second is how do we guarantee that our needs are always met? Reliability of fuel is an issue. Our previous supplier was at Western Fuel, not uncommonly left us dry in some tanks. We have not had that problem. Synergy has installed meters in each of our tanks, so they know where our fuel levels are at. They have also agreed. So, for example, they come up to deliver to some other entity and they've got extra fuel in the tank. They will often call and say, hey, we've got extra unleaded diesel, whatever, maybe drop it in your tank. It saves them some delivery costs, save us some delivery costs, and helps keep us full. But as you'll see from the research, Graham County and City of Sierra Vista both own their own tanks. Graham County has a process where I think it's roughly every other month they go out to bid, and they fill 1 diesel, 1 unleaded every other month. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10 or more, the winning bid is Synergy. And so they put it out. The winning bidder is required to come and fill the order within a week. Usually it happens, or within 3 days.
3 days.
3 days, and then they're usually there the next day. But usually it's Synergy. City of Sierra Vista, similar situation, but they've gotten to the point where nobody else bids because Synergy always wins. Duncan has an arrangement. They have a very, very small fleet. And so they have an arrangement with one of the local vendors there in town. Interestingly, right now, there is only 1 vendor in the Duncan area. And so the other one needs to replace their tanks, and they're in the process of doing that. We were also contacted about the time we were reaching this decision about another supplier, a small group that was wanting to sort of break into the industry. There are several ways we could approach the problem. One, we could essentially draft an RFP and then go out and peddle and see if we can find anybody to take us up. That might be Pilot Travel. That's the one that occasionally wins a bid with Graham County. This other single supplier may respond. As far as getting the best price on any particular day, fuel is one of those areas, and I think this backs it up. Fuel is the cost of that you buy it that day. We've seen prices rise in the pump recently. But it does not appear that the margins are such vastly different. That you're gonna consistently get different bidders. We don't know. We've never been contacted by Pilot Travel. We have no idea whether they're interested. There are lots of stations in the Graham County area relative to the number of stations in our area. So we don't know. So we could draft an RFP, send it out to as many people as we could and try and see what we can drum up. My suggestion is that we use the research that Tony did and essentially declare a single supplier source here and then go and negotiate the best contract we can with Synergy. One of the other concerns we have is, and Tony, you'll know this much better than I do, but about half of our tanks are Synergy tanks and half are our own.
Yeah, the 8,000 gallon tanks that are in Clifton and Duncan are our own. The one at the landfill and the two at the airport are Synergy's.
So
And what size are they?
4,000 gallons. 1,000 at the landfill for the red dye. And 4,000.
So
Gas.
only two of them would take a tanker then. They're
Right.
continually topping them off then.
we, because of that mix, if we decide to switch vendors, we would either need to purchase replace their tanks with our tanks we would purchase. Part of the contract that they proposed gave a value on a tank of roughly $20,000. The other person who had approached us, suggested they could supply the tank itself for about half that cost,
About
8 or 10. It did not come with meters or pumps or any of the other connection. It would simply be the tank, but we would need to replace those tanks. There would be the changeover, the physical changeover, which over the long haul would be a pain in the moment, but over the long haul we could manage. But as I've looked at this and as I've visited with Tony about it several times now, one of the factors that I think weighs heavy is the reliability of the supply. And I do not sense that Synergy is likely to gore us for high prices in as much as the fuel industry is competitive. We've known from discussions with local convenience stores that even they recognize gas is not what they're making their money on. They get people into their store with gas so that they will buy the other products that they sell. But with that, my recommendation to the board is that we reach out to Synergy, negotiate the best contract we can, and move forward with this decision. We are currently right now hauling diesel or getting trucks back up to the three-way or flipped them to fill with diesel down in the Duncan area because we don't have a diesel tank there right now. And if I've said anything incorrect, Tony, you correct me, please.
You're doing good so far.
But that's kind of where we're at. My fear is that this would be not unlike when we went out to try and find a metal building constructor. There was one option available. In this case, like I say, Marathon has not expressed interest. I do not recall seeing a pilot truck in the county. Now, I don't live everywhere in the county all at once, 24/7. I don't recall seeing one. I see Circle K trucks. But that's where we're at. We're at a crossroads. We can become much more formal with it, or we can accept Tony's research and I would ask the board to direct staff to negotiate the best contract we could.
Yeah,
I tend to agree with everything that has been presented. I think CERN Energy would be the one to go with, to negotiate with. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think because of their experience and their size, I mean, you could go with an alternative or something like that, but you don't have that history and you don't have the ability to hold them accountable when they go, flake out or they go on vacation or whatever, and they're not able to deliver fuel when need be. So I think that's important to have that consistency of supply. but at the same time, I don't think that there's any. I don't know that there's a negative to the fact of going out to get bids. And letting us make a decision based on the bids received. And Synergy would probably win, or Synergy might be the only place to, that provides a bid. But I don't know, is there a timing aspect, or is there a need? Is it difficult to go out to bid for this type of? I mean, we know what we want, we know what we need. I think it might just be easy to go through that practice and have actual bids for us to review and then make a more educated decision. And not just assume that Synergy would be the best place, best company to provide us fuel. That's my opinion.
And I'm basing my opinion on history. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like,
I agree.
we're struggling to get bids and everyone else is struggling to get bids, so why waste our time?
And if it is large waste of time, I totally get it.
Well, and to be honest, we have not been bidding. Synergy has been our sole source supplier for several years. We have not been able to find in our office a previous contract. I don't know that Tony's been able to find one either. I don't know. I was not around, or at least do not remember why we switched from Western to Synergy or what that decision process was. We've been with them for how many years now, Tony?
That'd be over 10.
Over 10.
The reason we left Western was because we were getting dry too often. And I don't know the decision making on that time, but we went to Synergy for that reason.
And we're dry with diesel and Duncan, right? We have no
We
diesel
are.
over there.
Were you on our fuel truck for the road
Yeah.
crew?
Is that because it's not being delivered or because of the tank?
Because of the tank.
I was gonna say,
Right.
where we don't have capacity to take complete loads, because getting a load in here is a matter of making a phone call a lot of times, and with diesel and they'll come within 2 or 3 days. But the expense and the maintenance of maintaining a tank that will take a full load is something, and I don't know, where we have to deliver at different points, that makes it more difficult too for someone to come in and supply. But if they have monitors and this, that, and the other, and we have a good history with them, part of me sort of feels like Ron, every once in a while we need to just put feelers out there. And the other part of me, if they're treating you really good, service is and loyalty is a two-way street. And so I don't know, I'm perfectly happy with going with Synergy. If they've served us well and they continue to serve us well. But every once in a while, maybe it doesn't hurt to put a feeler out there and say, hey.
And if I might, Mr. Chairman, what would be involved in putting an RFP out is we would take and probably start with the backbone of Synergy's contract, but then put in there anything else that we thought was important that we would want in that contractual relationship, and then send it out to whomever we could find to send it out to, and put a deadline and see who responds. If this were a month to month or even a year to year, that might be one thing, but the Synergy is offered as a 5-year contract, and so
I
it's
see that with 180-day.
with a 6-month out clause. And so it becomes a long-term relationship. I doubt that Synergy is going to be insulted if we go out an RFP. I doubt they're going to turn up their nose and say, well, if you don't like us, we're not going to come. On the other hand, it's a process. It could be done. Like I say, my recommendation is that we go with what we know is working. But we could certainly go out, and that's why I agendized it in the way that we did. Not to approve the contract, but to negotiate a final contract. And if this board gives us direction to go out and put an RFP out on the street, we will certainly do so.
Derek, if we do go out, what are we proposing to make the deadline? Gonna give it 30 days? If we don't hear from them, we move on, or what are we gonna do?
I would imagine as a practical matter, we would probably have it ready for you in our second meeting in May. As simply that's because we would need to put together we are on our second meeting our first meeting in April. We need to put together the RFP, get it out, and probably give people 30 days to respond. So that puts us probably in our second meeting in May. Again, that's a temporary. I mean, if you look over the course of a 5-year contract, 5-year relationship, 2 months or a month and a half more is not fatal to that decision. But I would imagine that would be our time frame.
And again, just that there is no timing, need to enter into this right now. I mean.
No,
not-
we're making it work. There's an additional cost in terms of manpower, the use of the diesel, our fuel truck. But in terms of a hard deadline, we'll turn into pumpkins if we don't get this solved by the end of the month.
Yeah.
No, there's not. We've got time to look at this a little further if the board wants to do so.
I'm a little torn. I think Chairman Love mentioned the same thing, because he's a little torn. It's like, it totally makes sense what's been outlined and the relationship that we've had with Synergy and the other counties and entities that use Synergy. So that makes sense, and we're happy with them.
We are.
That's a good thing. The fire side of me, like
Perception.
contract side says, well, if it doesn't, if the need is not right now to enter into that contract, that I feel like, and if it's not a huge process, then it doesn't waste a lot of taxpayer dollars, right? To go out to get proposals from people, that way we just make a better educated decision. So that's my.
And we know they're the best.
Exactly.
They've earned it.
Well, we have the history, and that can be part of our decision process too. I mean, it's not all about price, but it's about performance, and that's part of that decision process. But right now, we're not comparing anybody, and
You're
I
correct.
don't know.
We're using anecdotal information,
Yeah.
but we have not gone out and priced the market ourselves.
I don't want to derail it, but I think it would behoove us to go through that activity, just so that we have more information to say, okay, yes, Synergy might be a little bit more, in comparison, or we have nothing to compare to. But at least we have that decision, and we can use the history of their performance and our happiness with them as part of our decision process. Are you guys okay with that?
I like that.
I can buy that.
You have
And I'll
direction
tell you,
then?
I told you
We
so.
have direction and we will, between Tony, myself and Gary, we'll put together an RFP and we'll go see what's out there in the market.
And I mean, I wouldn't extend it very long. I'd give them a couple weeks to get their proposal back, and you already have your proposal from Synergy, and
We would probably not use that proposal as comparison, because some of the things we wanted to maybe negotiate with Synergy, we will put in our RFP and for example, I want them to maintain the tanks. If they own them, I want them to maintain them, and we could do a few things like that. But certainly we can put that together and get it out on the street as quickly as we can.
all right.
You have direction then, Derek?
We
don't
do.
need- Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the agenda item 4?
Not from staff.
Okay. If not, we'll go to agenda item 5. Austin, Adam,
Morning.
good morning.
So on agenda item 5A, it's discussion action to consider award bid for supplement VM server. This is a server for the South Annex. This will give us redundancy. So if we have a fail on the server up here, we can just pop up a mirrored on that VM down there on the South Annex if we have issues. With this, there's several quotes that came in. I'm sorry, I just dropped off that other packet to you. One of the quotes was two-sided, so it was missing the back page. The first bid on there is CDWG. They came in the lowest. It's equipment. I think they came in at 55 and change, if I'm not mistaken.
419.
It's going to be on that, I think, the third page of that packet. That would be my recommendation to go with. That's all the same equipment, just priced through 3 different vendors.
Any questions? If not, a motion would be in order. If less, there's discussion.
And it was CW or the CDWG, right?
Yeah, it should have been the amount of 55,000. Is that correct on there?
Yeah, 419.98.
Yep.
28.
That was the lowest
Okay,
price.
Also move that we approve awarding the bid for a supplemental VM server to Dell Power Edge Server and Utility XT Hybrid Summary for a total not to exceed $55,419.28.
I'll second that.
Have motion is second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Motion passes. Thank you very, very much. 5B.
All right, so item B is there's a little more to this one. Was not one of the capital improvement projects. But this item is countywide Wi-Fi upgrade. So I don't think we have a box in here. But this is putting Wi-Fi all through the courthouse. This building, this is the sheriff's office, this is the jail. This is also the fleet buildings at Three-Way. This is the fairgrounds, South Annex. So this goes through and does the entire county. On this one, there's a couple of 3 different bids on equipment. I believe MicroAge at 28,000 was the cheapest there. There is also an installation cost. Right now we have a proposal for bid from BITS, Better IT Solutions for the amount of 7,200. And they have that set up at, you saw in the packet at 72 hours at $100 an hour. And that would be pulling in the Cat 5 wire, or Cat 6, sorry, now we're updated. Pulling in all the wires, setting up all these Wi-Fi bases all around the county. This would also give us a better guest network, not only to mention our current network, just to get us up to current speeds. Also with this, there is some material as far as buying more Cat 6, some of the connectors, some of the installation hardware. And if you look on that note on that one, you'll see a do not exceed 44,000 is the number we're looking at. We should stay under to do that upgrade.
Sure.
Yes,
But
please.
the equipment is at 28,601.
Yes.
With MicroAge, right?
With
That
MicroAge,
was the
correct.
lowest.
Yep. And the recommendation to go with BITS for the install because they will be the ones maintaining the system. I'd hate to have somebody else go put in the plumbing and then me try to fix it. Would not be fun. So I think that's the right move. They've already designed the system as far as what to purchase for this. And really this is going through and looking at it, discussing with this. This should be a really robust system for us.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, a motion would be in order.
Well, I move that we approve awarding the bid for the countywide Wi-Fi upgrade to MicroAge for the equipment and BITS for the install not to exceed $44,000.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We'll now go to agenda item 6, Mr. Repair and Bianca Castaneda.
We've hit that point in the legislature where they've decided that there's not much they can do by coming into the office 5 days a week. And so they are coming in once a week. There are some reasons for that. And the reason is that everyone's waiting on next week when the income tax deadline comes in. Because so many people file electronically, they will have an idea of what that revenue looks like at the state level within a day or two after the April 15th deadline. Of course, many have already filed, particularly those who are expecting a refund. They tend to ask early. Those who owe money tend to wait. And so, and for some of those who owe money, they will wait and send a check. So it takes that much longer. But they'll have a pretty good idea of the nature of the budget come April 15th. We have heard various reports that there has not been a lot of substantive discussions between the governor's office and legislative leadership. And perhaps chairman has heard different than I have, but they're not talking, or at least if they're talking, they're not talking seriously. By slowing their calendar down. It gives incumbents time to go back to their districts and do some campaigning and lead up to the July primaries and so forth. But we're not expecting a lot of movement out of the legislature right now. I wanted to bring to your attention, let me bring it up here real quick. We received yesterday. I'm going to try to share my screen. I just came across this morning. Let's see here. This will not be ideal, but hopefully it will work. It's maybe too small for anybody to see. We received our March distribution. Yeah, I'm going to read that number to you. It's $394,814.17. That's a market lower. That's a market decline in our revenue from even over the last few months, which has been declining. I'll have a full report ready for you at our next meeting. We just got this yesterday. Why is that number important? Because that's the trigger for our unassigned fund balance policy. That if we dip under 400,000, staff is then directed to, and I'll pull it up real quick. So we are directed here. That should the amount fall below 400,000 in a given month, the finance office begin an analysis of ongoing economic condition impacting the county. We've already begun to do some of that. We've discussed, for example, copper outlook. Copper prices are actually holding very, very well, but the cost of production is rising to meet that price. Not surprising. We see it at the grocery store, we see it at the gas pump, we see it in the price of cars. All of those things affect how much it costs to make copper, get it out of the ground and get it to market. And so that's affecting the severance tax portion of the state shared sales tax revenue formula distributes to us. So some counties in the state have their distribution based on population. Ours is based on net assessed value. We're not the only county that's that way, but ours is directly impacted by severance tax and cost of production in that regard. So we've hit that trigger point, and staff we will begin an analysis of economic conditions, and then if we dip below 400,000 again next month, then we will come to you and we'll prepare that in advance with a plan to where we freeze hiring, where each, whatever the case may be, we will look at economic measures to bring our expenditures in line with revenues. We have some wiggle room in our budget. We have some vacancy savings. We have some other initiatives that we did not do. Most of our capital improvement projects were paid for with not our general revenue funds. Some have been, but not all of them. But I wanted to highlight that for you, that our revenues continue to decline and that our budget needs to adapt accordingly. We are in the fourth quarter already, and so there's not a lot of time to adjust, but I know Renee's been looking at balances. We will continue to look at balances and make sure that we finish the year in balance. We will also adjust our revenue projections for the coming year, and as we continue to have budget work sessions and so forth, I want to let not just the board, but everybody else who's working on budget sheets, even right now, be aware that we're forecasting a much leaner year next year. We just aren't going to have the cash that we've had over the last few years. Part of that is because we've had an influx of federal money, but part of that is likewise, and we wisely, I say we, you, because you made that decision, we have not stood up any programs or additional personnel positions with one-time money. We've directed that money to be used for one-time projects, and so we're in balance there. But going forward, it is extremely unlikely that we would be able to meet the, for example, raises and wages that we've hit the last couple of years. We've been able to stay ahead of inflation. but the economic pendulum has begun to swing the other direction. And so we are in the process of developing the budget now. Budget sheets are out to the elected departments. We'll have them today or tomorrow. And we will adjust accordingly. So I feel like I'm announcing the funeral, but it's not a funeral, but it is we have to adapt to it. Fortunately, taking a conservative approach to budgeting makes that adaptation easier, but we're gonna have to roll with the punches that are thrown at us.
So this year's budget is not in jeopardy. We are just, since this is so, well, the start of the first quarter, the fourth quarter, we should have no problem staying within our budget and, but in view of what's happening, we will budget for the downward in next year's budget. Is that what I'm hearing?
With the additional caveat that we are gonna be looking for areas where we can turn off the spigot in the current year. So while we're in budget good now, if this continues, let's say that next month we're at 350,000 instead of 394, then that's an additional, we budgeted a clip that was about 500,000 a month.
A
in
month,
income.
okay.
And so yes, so there are areas in our budget that had some wiggle room in them. But those margins will help make up the monthly deficit we've been seeing. But yes, we're gonna be looking beginning today. Like I said, opened this up this morning. We'll be looking starting today and saying, where can we stop spending where we don't need to spend? There are some things we're gonna hit payroll. No one's gonna go without a paycheck. But maybe we don't purchase something that we could put off. Maybe we'll look at other things that we can do.
Nothing new.
Yeah, we've done this before. This isn't new.
Yes.
Yeah.
That builder once in a while. Just, it bewilders me that we're at $4.25 copper, but we're still talking about the decline in revenues. And we've looked at the decline in revenues over the last several months.
We have.
And so this is the kind of the trigger to, hey, let's take this serious, because you never know what's coming month to month. But and I know that we are very specific, and we're because of our county and our corporate citizen and how our taxes work. Are other counties seeing the same decline in revenues that we are seeing? I mean, we've looked at ours month over month over the last 3 years, we definitely tell that. Are other counties feeling that same thing, or are we feeling it worse? Because really we have one taxpayer, and it's all tied to copper price, and it's tied between the price of copper that they're selling and how much it makes, that it takes them to produce. So there's that gap right there. That gap is obviously, thank God,
Pretty narrow.
thank God copper's at 425, but yes, because everything else, fuel, metal, I mean, metal costs are incredible. But I'm just curious, are we seeing that same trend, declining revenues across other counties?
Interesting you should ask, because last month's County Managers Association, we addressed that and had specifically a presentation on that. There are only 3 counties that are showing a negative revenue year over year from last year. Us, Graham County, and Santa Cruz County. The economic dynamics of each of those 3 counties are very, very different. Although Graham County every day is starting to look more like Greenland County, and that their major taxpayer is also FMI. Santa Cruz is a much more complex economy, driven much more by the border and cross-border economic traffic. All of the other 12 counties are actually showing increases. Some of the larger counties are showing large increases relative to what the norm's been. The biggest reason for that is because most of the other counties, particularly the larger counties, their economies are tied to Arizona's economy, particularly Maricopa and that central corridor, Pima, Pinal, Maricopa, even up into Yavapai. When you build more chip manufacturing plants, for example, you've got more people employed, you've got more sales going on. The price of metal for building a building is also high, but that translates into sales that impact them. Maricopa County does not care that there's another part of the state beyond their border because they are big enough that they're sort of their own economy, if you will. But as you get further out, where, for example, in our case, severance becomes the driving economic factor, that will change. And so Greeley County is seeing double-digit declines. The other two counties are in single-digit declines. My neighbor to the west, Dustin Welker, asked about that, and he was very curious. We're somewhat used to being a copper county. They are not. And he said, I thought when they started producing copper that we'd be really well off. And that's when we sat down with Vanessa Fielder at CSA and helped him understand that severance, which includes the cost of production, is the driving factor when it comes to mining operations. And so while it's still very good for them to have a copper partner, they're getting used to that. We've seen this before. We've lived through this before. Part of that 1.8 that we get each year from the mine is to serve as sort of a ballast, if you will, a balance to level out the ups and downs. Before that occurred, there were times that our property taxes looked like, you know, a cardiac monitor. It was up and down dramatically. And so, yes, we're seeing the biggest declines of any county in the state. There are only 3 that are seeing it, and it's definitely driven by local economic factors.
Well, thanks for that.
And we talk about this often, but our economy is less tied to Arizona's economy, more tied to the world economy. When the world needs copper, we are better off. And so if they're manufacturing iPhones or cooktops or whatever in China and you need a bunch of wire to do it, that helps. Whether or not, you know, they open or close another mall in Phoenix doesn't help us as much. It helps some because every sales dollar in the state gets distributed. So if there's this Final Four, it'll have a boost statewide. It'll just be a much smaller boost here. Whereas if the world starts consuming copper and somehow the price of producing it goes down, we benefit more than the other counties.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because you mentioned that we've been through this before, and we all agree we've been through that before, but that's when we see copper going down to 250 or 2 or something like that. Not when you see $4.25. So it's just the different,
It's a cost of production issue. It's the other half of the economic
yeah, when
equation.
you talk about inflation and the impact of inflation, a lot of people, you know, we don't see it on the day to day. We see a little bump when you go to the store, but when you're talking about product, you know, copper production, that's where they're seeing that huge increase in costs. And obviously that's why we're seeing that decline.
There was a comment made recently. We get frustrated because it takes us 2 years to get an ambulance from when we order it. It takes them 4 years to get a haul truck from when they order it. And you can imagine what the prices have done in the last 4 years from the time of order to the time of delivery. But when you're looking at $1 million machines or whatever it costs, yeah, those add up. And the only way, because deflation is not good for an economy either. So the only way is you wait for prices, that margin to grow enough again, and metal prices may go down, but probably not tomorrow. Any event,
And an
what a
engine
gloomy
rebuild-
report today.
Engine rebuild is about $500,000, so I mean, I think the cost is a little higher than that.
Yeah, I don't know what they cost, but I know that they are expensive.
Yes.
And more expensive now than they were a year or 2 or 3 or 4 ago. So any event, that's the reality. And the reality for us is that we are going to adjust our budget wise. So.
Thank you.
And kudos to all you folks, Renee and everybody in Austin and you there in regards to getting us where we need to be, because this is an ongoing thing that happens periodically, and we're here now and we kind of sit back and wait to see what you guys come up with.
And I want to really compliment the team because the level of analysis and thought given to this has really increased, and it's great to have a team approach to the problem. So I'd like also to thank Austin and Renee particularly, who's on top of the numbers daily. So
Thank you.
But one reason we're not in dire trouble right now is because we always do budget very conservatively, because we know
it's coming.
that wave or that dip And I don't want to be caught on the surfboard when the wave comes over.
In your Speedo.
Don't forget
Oh,
that.
heaven
Hey,
forbid.
G&E, they call me the white tornado, by the way.
Sunglasses.
You brought up the Speedo thing earlier for those who missed it.
Oh, my goodness. Good deed never goes unpunished, does it? Okay, anything else? If not, we'll, Bianca, calendar?
Thank you. This week, the 12th is county managers and LPC, Friday. Next week, Wednesday, the 17th, small counties, Eco WIFA, and on Thursday, the 18th, CSA Board of Directors.
Bianca, Eco has been changed to the 18th after the CSA meeting.
Okay,
I've just found out this morning.
I will get that sheet.
That's,
Our next board meeting is April 23rd. And then LPC on the 26th. And we have a proposed budget work session, scheduled for the 30th, April 30th, Tuesday.
And Mr. Chairman and members, we will also probably include a budget work session in each of our meetings going forward as well. We'll try to take them in smaller bite-sized pieces, so we're not here for hours at a time. And some of these proposed, we may not need, but I wanted to put them on your calendar.
okay, so the 23rd, will we have a budget work session afterwards?
As part of the, yes, that's our plan.
Okay, thank you.
Going into May, Thursday, the 2nd is the SEGO, council meeting. LPC on Friday, the 3rd. WIR starting the 7th through the 10th. County managers on the 10th and LPC. We moved our board meeting from the 7th to the 14th, and then we'll do a proposed, budget work session for that. Small counties on the 15th, Eco and WIFA also on the 15th, Wednesday, CSA Thursday on the 16th. And then a SEGO executive board meeting on the 17th. Our next board meeting will be the following week, the 21st, with another proposed budget work session. Thursday, Morenci and Duncan, 8th grade promotion, and high school graduation on the 24th, Friday. LPC meeting is also that day.
On the 2nd through the 4th, there is a eco field trip for the legislators
In May,
in May, 2nd through the 4th.
The 27th, Memorial Day, our offices are closed, and then we will have another proposed budget work session on the 28th. LPC on the 31st, Friday. Going into June, our first board meeting on the 4th with a budget work session. County managers on the 14th. Our next board meeting on the 18th. WIFA and Eagle on the 19th. And no CSA board meetings in June.
and on the 18th of June is when we propose to adopt the tentative budget.
Adopt the tentative budget, okay.
That's all I have.
Anyone else? Not right now. Okay, well. If there's no further additions to the calendar, we will go to agenda item 7, consent agenda.
So move that we approve the consent agenda as posted.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Motion passes. We will now go to agenda item 8, supervisory reports. Mr. Campbell.
No, just quickly, we had a meeting with FMI last week, and that was very, very good. We'll start doing that quarterly, just to kind of get a status of the state of affairs. And I appreciate them making the time to provide information to us. That's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't have anything to report.
Okay, well, the legislature has really slowed down. This year, there was 1,629 bills introduced. As of right now, there's been 83 bills signed. There's been 18 vetoes, and there's been two ballot issues referred to the ballot. Also, the thing that really, there's been a lot about elections. And there's been LPC has, along with ACO, have opposed a lot of bills this year, and one that keeps growing legs is Senate Bill 1288. It repeals the current logic and accuracy testing statutes and requires all electronic and electoral mechanical voting systems be tested by the county officers in charge of elections, and outlines certain testing procedure requirements, prescribe penalties for device tampering. And I think this board, and we support the election system. We support our staff. We think they've done an excellent job. We don't think that our elections are tampered or results aren't what they are. And so LPC has opposed bills and other bills similar to this, and we will continue to oppose these type of bills and stand with our recorders and our election officials in making sure that we have valid voting. Other than that, like I say, there's a lot of bills that have been coming through, and a lot of them have to do with election, and they're just the bills we can't support. So that's my and as far as the budget, the word I'm getting and from good sources is there's no communication coming out of the governor's office. So anyway, with that, that's my report. That concludes our agenda, and with no further business, this meeting's adjourned. Great job.
Yeah. It's at 75. We do